Long ago, in a time when the world was still young, there existed a powerful and ancient tribe known as the Sand People. This tribe lived deep in the heart of the desert, far away from the eyes of the world. They were a proud and mysterious people, blessed with a unique gift passed down through generations. The Sand People could control the very sands of the desert, shaping them with their hands, commanding the dunes, and creating oases where none existed. Their magic was powerful, and they lived in harmony with the harsh desert landscape that they called home. For many years, the Sand People thrived, their villages hidden beneath the shifting sands, protected by their magic from the dangers of the outside world. But then, one day, a great calamity struck. A series of powerful sandstorms, more violent than any before, swept through the desert. The storms were so fierce that they buried entire villages under mountains of sand, and the once thriving tribe seemed to vanish overnight. The Sand People were lost to history, their memory fading into the tales and legends of the desert. As time passed, new people moved into the desert, unaware of the ancient tribe that had once lived there. They built their homes and farms on the land, believing it to be their own. Generations went by, and the story of the Sand People became nothing more than a distant myth, a story told to children around the fire to explain the strange, shifting sands of the desert. But then, one day, the desert began to change. The sands that had been calm for so long began to stir, and the winds started to howl once more. Strange things began to happen in the villages. Sandstorms appeared out of nowhere, more powerful than anything the people had ever seen. The sands shifted and moved as if they were alive, covering crops and homes, burying entire villages under layers of sand. The people were terrified, not understanding what was happening. Among the villagers was a young warrior named Moloch. He was brave and kind, always ready to help those in need. When the sandstorms began to destroy his village, Moloch knew that he had to do something. He had heard the old stories of the Sand People from his grandmother, stories that spoke of their magic and power. He began to wonder if those stories were true, and if the ancient tribe had something to do with the strange events happening in the desert. One night, as the winds howled outside and the sand battered against the walls of his home, Moloch decided to seek the truth. He packed his belongings, wrapped himself in a heavy cloak to protect against the sand, and set out on a journey into the heart of the desert. He was determined to find the lost tribe and discover the reason behind the return of the sandstorms. Moloch walked 4 days, the hot sun beating down on him during the day and the cold winds chilling him at night. The desert was vast and unforgiving, but Moloch was determined. He followed the signs in the sand, strange patterns that seemed to guide him deeper into the desert. Along the way, he encountered many challenges: scorpions hiding beneath rocks, mirages that tricked his eyes, and the constant threat of dehydration, but he pressed on, knowing that the fate of his village depended on him. Finally, after many days of travel, Moloch reached a place where the sands seemed different. They were smoother, almost polished, and there was a strange energy in the air. He had found the ancient home of the Sand People. As he walked further, he began to see signs of life: small plants growing in the sand, the sound of water trickling, and then, in the distance, he saw them, the Sand People. They were just as the legends had described, their skin the color of the sand, their eyes sharp and alert, and they moved with a grace that seemed almost otherworldly. But these people were not the peaceful tribe of the stories. They were angry, their eyes filled with a burning rage. Moloch realized that the sandstorms were not natural. They were the work of the Sand People, who had returned to take back their land. Moloch knew that he had to speak to them, to find a way to stop the destruction before it was too late. He approached cautiously, showing respect and humility, as he had been taught. The Sand People watched him with suspicion, but they allowed him to speak. Moloch explained who he was and where he came from. He told them about the villages that had been built on their land, and how the people living there had no idea of the tribe's existence. He spoke of the destruction that the sandstorms were causing, not just to the villages, but to the desert itself. The leader of the Sand People, an old and wise man named Zalika, listened carefully to Malik's words. He had seen much in his long life and knew the pain of losing one's home. Zalika told Malik that his tribe had once lived in harmony with the desert, but when the great sandstorms came, they had been forced to hide deep beneath the earth, using their magic to survive. Now, they had returned, but they found their land occupied by strangers, and they were angry. Malik understood their pain, but also knew that violence would only bring more suffering. He asked Zalika if there was a way for them to share the land, to live together in peace. He promised that the people of the villages would respect the desert and the Sand People's ways. Zalika was silent for a long time, thinking about Malik's words. Finally, he spoke. "We have lived in the shadows for too long," Zalika said. "We do not wish to fight, but we will not be forgotten again. If your people are willing to respect our ways, we will call off the sandstorms and find a way to live together." Malik was relieved and promised to return to his village and tell the people of the Sand People's offer. Zalika and his tribe agreed to wait and see if the villagers would keep their word. Malik left the ancient home of the Sand People and began the long journey back to his village. When he returned, he gathered the villagers and told them of his journey and the agreement he had made with the Sand People. At first, the villagers were afraid and uncertain, but Malik's bravery and sincerity convinced them to try. They sent gifts of food and water to the Sand People, and in return, the Sand People shared their knowledge of the desert, teaching the villagers how to live in harmony with the land. Over time, the two groups learned to trust each other. The sandstorm stopped, and the desert became a place of peace once more. The Sand People were no longer a forgotten tribe, but a respected part of the community, and the villagers learned to live with the desert's magic, rather than against it. And so, the lost tribe of the desert was found once again, not through force or anger, but through understanding and cooperation. Malik became a hero in his village, not for his strength or his fighting skills, but for his wisdom and his willingness to listen. The story of the Sand People and their return was passed down through the generations, a reminder that even in the harshest of places, peace can be found if we are willing to work together.